Welcome to Collision, the podcast where we discuss the fun and sometimes complicated collision of real life and trusting God. If you're curious or confused about how to engage the world we live in, we hope our conversation here helps. Now, let's get into this episode of Collision.
Well, welcome to the Collision podcast. I'm here with Stu Jackson. Welcome, Stu Jackson.
Mr. Manning.
It is good to see you this afternoon. It's been about a month since we did this. A lot of things have happened in the world.
A lot of things.
And one of the big news, at least in our area, is from your college, Ralphie 7. We have a buffalo that's running again on the football field.
We do have a buffalo that's running, and the poor handlers that are almost dragged down the field. It was hilarious to watch. I loved every minute of it.
You know, when it comes to CU football, we need buffalo that run. You know, Ralphie's 6. She can't be coming out eating turf, right? That's hamburger, bison burger.
That's bison burger now. Yep.
Bison burger. But Ralphie's 7. We need a buffalo that runs.
Yeah, Ralphie 6 is retired.
Don't
eat in the dorms, kids. That's all I'm going to say.
So Ralphie runs. CU wins. I think there's correlation there.
Absolutely.
All of CU Nation is fired up for their football team once again. Dion's on top of the world. Life is good.
Yep. Absolutely. 2-2 now.
2-2. Yes. So that's the big news of happening in Colorado. But in light of the national news, that is small potatoes. We're a couple of weeks past the assassination of Charlie Kirk, as well as the Evergreen shooting at the high school here in Colorado.
Yep.
We're just a little bit removed from Charlie Kirk's funeral service, the memorial service that they had for him in Arizona. And so today, we thought we'd just take a few moments just to talk about the impact of Charlie Kirk's life, his assassination, what that's looked like in the context of the church that we're a part of and the families that we're a part of. And so going back a couple of weeks, Stu, as you think about September 10th, kind of walk me through the feelings of that day. Like, you know, they've said that this assassination of Charlie Kirk in particular will probably be seen in history much like 9/11 is, where my grandkids, your grandkids will come to you one day and go, "Hey, Dad, do you remember where you were at on 9/11? Do you remember where you were at when Charlie Kirk was assassinated?" And it has that kind of significance in our history now. And so walk us through. Where were you at?
Yeah, you know, I feel that way.
Yeah.
I feel that there's going to be... this isn't just a footnote in history. There's something else. And what I really hope it is, and before we get what I was doing and the reactions, what I really hope it is it's remembered because of his faith. He was an outspoken supporter of Jesus Christ, the Gospels, all of that stuff. And so I hope that's where the remembrance is.
Yeah.
Now, it's a political assassination. I get that. I'll be honest, I saw the videos. When it first started happening, you pull up your phone and there was no editing. In today's world where everything is instant and everybody's a reporter and there's no filter, I saw the videos.
Yeah,
that shook me to my core.
The untold damage that we did to our souls watching those videos. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you get, But so I was actually on vacation, got the news alert on my phone. And then shortly thereafter, one of my kids called me and was irate.
Okay.
It was not a reaction of can you believe it or disbelief. It was raw anger coming out because of what they did to this person. And my son happens to be in that age range, which is really kind of the sweet spot where Charlie has talked to the crowds at the college level, and so I was kind of taken aback. By that, the raw anger reaction. So I'll never forget that moment. Getting that call from him, feeling what it was like. For me, you know what? I got to be honest. It angered me, but in a different way. It wasn't that. I have always tended to be a little bit more apolitical publicly. In private, I'll be honest, I'm a fairly conservative person.
Yeah.
Probably leaning more conservative than I have. And, I keep going this way. I remember college, I was this side, and now I'm back to, going the other way.
As is the tendency with most humans.
Yeah, kind of weird how that works. You start making money, you're like, well, wait a minute, you can't take my money.
Right.
But it just bothered me that something like this could happen in our world. In our time, you have somebody that was assassinated because of his beliefs, and it wasn't rhetoric to me. I mean, I've watched a lot of Charlie Kirk videos prior to the event and after the event, looking for something that says, that he was whatever that he's been called.
Yes,
Racist, fascist. You can go down the list, looking for something that I could say, that probably wasn't a good idea, but it was never a conversation of anger or hatred or anything like that from him. He just wanted to have that conversation. And he wanted to get back to a world that we could talk to each other.
Yeah.
We can have differing views.
Yeah.
And that's okay. The key is understanding those differences so that we can work with each other.
Absolutely.
I think that's a fairly innocent thing, but clearly other people feel differently.
Yeah. I remember on Wednesday when that happened, I got the news first of the Evergreen shootings, which, just another school shooting in Colorado, brought back all the memories. I was actually a senior in high school when Columbine happened. And all of those different emotions added to that. I have a friend who has a couple of high school students at Evergreen. And so there was this kind of rush to figure out if his kids were okay. In that, and then while all that's happening, I get the alerts that Charlie Kirk's been shot, and like you, right, just clicked on the video and thought that maybe, I don't know what I expected to see.
Oh, well, I didn't expect to see that.
I didn't expect to see that either. And then immediately, family members, my brother, started, texting back and forth, and it was like the realization that nobody's going to survive that shot. Like he's gone.
Yeah.
Like we have just witnessed an assassination, on a figure who's a political activist, a professing believer. And I think in those moments, like there was all of these different feelings that I had, but I think the biggest one was heartbreak. There was a sadness more so than anger, because it felt like at least the principles of what this country was founded on, not the Judeo-Christian values so much as I would say, like, the freedom to speak and the ability to have dialogue, civil dialogue, and to even have two differing opinions and be able to have your say on both sides. And that's the best of what the university system represents. And that this happened on a university, that this happened in the midst of debate, was just this like shattering piece that maybe the idealistic nation that we're a part of, all of that just kind of shattered.
Right. Well, in the location, that's I think that's something important to note, that universities and educational institutions traditionally have been a place where you learn ideas.
Yeah.
And you learn history and facts. And these are
and your views are challenged.
And absolutely, your views are challenged, and I felt like that took a little bit of that away.
Yeah.
That no longer are you allowed to hold an opposing view to a majority on a campus. That it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And that takes away, especially with one of your kids in college. It's like, well, what's happening? What are you seeing? What are you? So.
Well, you have, as you mentioned, two boys who are right in that, mid-20s age range. I have two boys that are in high school currently. And immediately we kind of began to see the ripple effects, not just in that age demographic, although I want to talk about that, but really kind of nationwide.
Right.
The weekend following, we made the decision at Crossroads to pivot and pause what we were doing in order to address the situation and what is our response as believers in a moment like this. And in light of both of those events. And so we pivoted completely. That Sunday was one of the largest Sundays that we've ever had in the month of September. Right. There was just a coming. We had so many guests that day checking out, like asking, just searching for anything in that moment, even last week, and was, a week after that still attendance still fairly high in that, with people looking for answers, searching. And so so there's been a lot of response to this, probably regardless of what, the sane political aisle that you're in, right? Not the extremes, but,
Right.
The sane sides. There has been a lot of response of realizing that there is something evil that happened there. In light of, your boys and the conversations you had there, you're really tied into a lot of the high school guys here, and youth in general. How have you seen it really impact that younger generation of, say, the 15 to 25-year-olds?
It's been really kind of, I'll be honest, it's tough. Mm-hmm. It's tough. So I have where I was on vacation was down with some friends in Florida, and they have an older son. He's 24, 25.
Yeah. And
his reaction was one of, he was upset, not in anger, but in, what do you do with this? Mm-hmm. And seeing the video and seeing the reaction, it was, what do you do?
Yeah.
Here is somebody that's so prevalent, and even if you have lived under a rock as a 15 to 25-year-old,
yeah,
you knew who Charlie Kirk was.
Yeah,
you didn't agree with him, that's fine, but you knew who he was.
He has been probably the most influential activist among the youth movement, probably going back at least to the 60s and 70s with the youth movement. But, I mean, in our generation with social media, there's probably no one in the history of the world that has had captured the 15 to 25-year-old mind, particularly men.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely.
Like Charlie Kirk did.
And met them where they are.
Yeah.
Not trying to tell them where they should be, but met them where they are, and then, engaging in that conversation. So, there's that frustration, what do I do? What am I supposed to do with this? And then there's been the anger and the fear.
Yeah.
And I think the fear really has surprised me the most because, as we're here and, this podcast, and as I'm talking to kids and all that stuff, you're trying to encourage them to embrace their love of Christ.
Yeah.
And share that.
Yeah.
That's what Christ's, the Great Commission was.
Yeah.
Go out and share the word, folks. This is the way. And that was summarized. That wasn't in the Bible. Don't look that up.
That was the Stu edited version.
The Stu version of the Great Commission.
Yeah.
But we're asking these kids to do that, right? We have a vibrant youth group. We have, Damon is doing amazing things with McKenna, and now you have this public figure who was very open with his faith and very public with it, and his family was, his wife was, and his whole organization was, TPUSA, and that was taken from him. Now, it wasn't necessarily because of his Christian beliefs, but his political views and how he, how people viewed him as interacting with him.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to reconcile that with somebody who's 15 years old and say, that fear is healthy, but it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things, as a older man, and apparently if you were in Columbine when Columbine happened, you were a senior. I'm really old because I was not. I remember where I was when that happened. But it's one thing for us when you accept God and you start walking that journey, when you accept Christ into your life, and you understand that at any time your number may be called. And it's not necessarily the fear of dying, but it's the fear of what you're leaving behind. That, at least that's how I view it.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm not afraid of dying because where I get to go, I get to change my address to the best block in the world.
That's a good way to put it.
But what I leave behind and the pain and the suffering behind, that's what I fear the most.
Yeah.
So how do you teach a 15-year-old that? How do you teach them, hey, it's okay. Yeah. Your number's going to be called when your number's called. You don't want them to go live in the basement and not do anything for the rest of their lives. You still want them to be active and go out and do that. So they see Charlie Kirk, who's out there doing that, and they're starting to be like, wow, look at this guy, and they're following him and they're watching him on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and wherever else it is this week. I'm sure there's a new one.
Yeah.
And now he's gone.
Yeah.
Out of anger he's just taken away, and there's no closure. There's nothing. So, it's been all over the board. The hardest thing, and I'm sure we have a huge teen audience right now.
Yeah.
I know we reach all corners of the earth.
Like your optimisms too.
Hey, I got no illusions.
Yeah.
The people in France, I get stuff all the time from them. But it's one of those that I think the biggest thing that I try to relay with the kids is look at the faith that he had.
Yeah.
And the faith that he brought out in other people.
Mm-hmm.
His wife, Erica.
Yep.
You and I talked about it a little bit before starting the recording. She stood in front of 100 million people.
Mm-hmm.
And the number's grown and it continues to grow. It's phenomenal. It's the largest memorial service ever in the history of the world. She stood in front of them and said, I forgive the man that shot Charlie.
Yeah.
And you could say that she was, and I'm sure there are people that said, oh, she's playing for the camera. She's, but I'm not sure in that moment you could do that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure in the moment of pain and just the internal turmoil that she's going through, trying to come to terms with what's happened to her life. Her husband's gone. The father of her children.
Yeah.
Trying to think of what I want.
You'd have to be a pretty incredible narcissist.
Yeah. To think,
I'm
going to say this so that people think how great I am.
Yeah.
I just don't see it.
Yeah.
But so, it's the faith. Guys, look at the faith in what he had. He knew at any moment he could go out there and something like this happen.
Yeah.
And he continued to go out there. And he did it, I believe, with the full understanding that it was in God's hands.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's clear. And I think that, as I've tried to reckon it with my own boys and then, some of the high school students around here, I think that part of what their loss is and some of the anger that is coming from them is Charlie represented who they are, right? In terms of young men, even young women with a conservative voice, a conservative leaning, right? And what Charlie brought to the surface is that doesn't have to be dumb, right? Like there's actually an intelligence that can happen and you can be conservative.
Sure.
And he represented, I think in a lot of ways, what they want to be, in certainly for my oldest, what he would like to be, someone who has conservative values. And what does it look like to live those out in ways that maybe aren't accepted, quote unquote, but are intelligent.
Right.
And I think in that moment, a lot of that got, like you said, I think you used the right word, taken. And there wasn't any closure in that. And this vision of the best that I could be, right, in my Christian faith and in my conservative views and in my political leanings, right, that all of that was gone within a moment. And now there's this void of who steps up and who leads that and who's that voice. And, interestingly in culture, there's a lot of people vying for that space right now for whatever motives. But it will work itself out. You did mention, the memorial, which was huge. It went on, I think, all day on Sunday.
Yeah, it was 5 hours.
5 hours long. And as it was playing, I think one of the two things that really caught my attention is one, the use of the word Christian martyr over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And you kind of mentioned it already. And it's in some ways, is Charlie a martyr? Certainly, I would think. Maybe not a Christian martyr. He was a man who had Christian faith, and I would say a political martyr. He was politically assassinated.
Absolutely.
That's what he was. I don't know that he was actually killed. We don't know the motive of the killer yet. That he was,
and we may never know.
We may never know, right? And so, was he killed for his religious beliefs? Who's to say? Was he killed for his political beliefs? Certainly seems that way at this point.
Right.
And so, that term kept being used in his funeral, particularly by politicians, as a theologian and as a pastor. It's let's get our terms right.
Right. And driving over to the studio today, I started thinking about that a little bit, just kind of going through my head what to cover and talk about. And martyr, and I heard it. I watched the whole
Yeah.
memorial because I wanted to hear what people said. And in general, I was pretty happy with it. I didn't want to hear the political messages. I didn't want any of that. That's not why I listened to a memorial. I wanted to hear, what was said about Charlie's belief. And one of the things, when they started saying martyr, it was like, well, okay, that's great that you're throwing around martyr, but do you understand what that means?
Yeah.
Charlie, like you said, I'm not sure he was killed for his faith necessarily.
Yeah.
I think it was absolutely, or I shouldn't say absolutely. It certainly seems political.
Yeah. He did what he did because of his faith.
Right.
But he wasn't actually. And I think the only reason that I have a little bit of angst against that is because of the thousands of people who have died specifically for their faith, right? The early church and what they went through and what happened in the Roman arenas and, throughout the Middle Ages and stuff like that happened where people were killed because of their belief in Jesus. And,
I think Charlie maybe could be seen more as a role model.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think martyr works, especially in the context of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we're talking to people and stuff, he, as a Christian, he could certainly serve as a role model in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that was kind of a piece of it, but the larger piece was how clear the gospel was presented at his memorial. And regardless of which side of the political aisle you stand on, and whether you held to the same values and beliefs that Charlie Kirk had, what was very clear was the clear presentation of the gospel, not by just one person, but probably 6 or 7 times. Never in the history of the world has the gospel of Jesus been so clearly communicated in such a robust and huge, just the number of people who heard the gospel of Jesus in those moments.
Absolutely. I wish they had the same viewership that our podcast had, because it would have gone out to even more.
Would have been huge.
It would have been huge. No.
Would have been bigger.
With the numbers of 100 million people. And for me, it really started off, and I know it's wrong, and I can't think of it, and I'm not going to pick up my phone and search while we're recording. But the memorial opened with who Charlie considered his pastor.
Yeah.
And I think his last name's Abbott. Anyway, he started with the why. He talked about the why of who Charlie was. And he said, in this moment, Charlie would want the guest of honor at this service to be Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And I truly felt like he was.
Yeah.
That's what was talked about. It was Charlie's love of Christ and his dedication to that that really kind of shone through everything else. And of course, there was a little political speech. You get politicians on a stage. Right. They cannot help themselves.
Right. And then there was some that was talking about faith that very clearly was like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't.
It's like, oh, yeah, really been studying the Bible there, huh? Wink, wink, right. Nudge, nudge. But I think, like you said, it was profound the number of times it was talked about. For me, when you sit there and you're watching and you hear the vice presidents of the United States say, I've talked more about my religion in the past 2 weeks than I ever have in my life.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's, I hate to say it, some good that came from the Christian relationship that Charlie had.
Yeah.
And then Marco Rubio in his thing, in the first part of it, it was kind of, and there was some politics in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the last 90 seconds of his time on the stage, he summed up the gospel.
Oh, yeah, beautifully.
And it was, you had to kind of sit down to take it all in. It was, put your seatbelt on, make sure the lap bar's tight.
Yeah.
And here we go. And in 90 seconds, it was like, wow, this sums up everything that, Christians they understand it. This is incredible.
Yeah, I was really impressed by Rubio's presentation of the gospel and what that looks like and what that means. And I think part of the power of Charlie's life is, he started out, in his younger years as a conservative libertarian. That's what he was. Right. He wasn't a believer. Nope. And it was later down the years that he saw who Jesus was, gave his life, and would say, like, the most important decision of his life was to give his life, to surrender his life to Jesus, and how that changed how he saw what he was doing, right? And the views that he was expressing and the way that he was going about it. And so, like, in all of that, just the clear picture outside of the politics and the pyrotechnics and, the hoopla of the memorial, like, there was Jesus shining. And my favorite part of actually the whole memorial was the worship. There was some worship music that was kind of the middle, right? With Elevation Worship was there, and Cody Carnes and Chris a few Tomlin others. Yeah. Yep. And just that moment of like, oh my goodness, there is this broadcast is going to set records, and the songs of Jesus are being sang. And it was just a moment of awe, right? And it kind of reminded me of, like, even what evil intends for this world, God can use for good, right? We learned that in the very first book of the Bible. And here we are, 2,000 years past Jesus, and we still watch God use what the world intends for evil. Again, regardless of what you think of Charlie Kirk, we all know that at the end of the day, this assassination was wrong and it was evil.
Right.
And in that evil, the gospel of Jesus rises up out of the ashes. And it's like, man, that is awesome. And then you already mentioned it, Erica's moment of forgiveness. And it was so powerful because I think that, like, in our world, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, that, so much of our anger ultimately can lead to a bitterness. And in that bitterness, and we know people. I mean, you and I, we rub shoulders with people who could be categorized as bitter people.
Absolutely.
And that bitterness has taken root in their lives. And my firm belief is that the way to resolve anger, this is right out of Ephesians chapter 4, is to forgive, is that we forgive. And my forgiveness is not dependent on your repentance, right? Like you carry the burden of repenting. I carry the burden of forgiving. And forgiving is that moment where I say, you don't actually owe me anymore. And for Erica to stand up in front of the entire nation and to forgive Charlie's killer, that was a powerful moment.
Yeah, it's one of those, in that moment where you take away your reliance on somebody's repentance, it does something to you. Even small things.
Yeah.
The small things where you say, this isn't going to control me.
Yeah.
It's kind of transforming when you say, you know what, that's for them to figure out in their lives. I know what they did was wrong, and I just forgive them. I can't hold that against them.
Yeah.
So that was a powerful moment for me too, is watching her do that. And as we talk about all this and the anger and the frustration and everything that's come out of it, there's a lot of hurt too. And the hurt's tough to describe because a lot of people didn't have a personal relationship with him.
Right.
Although it's really weird, technology, that's one of the dangers, and people, I don't think, recognize that as when you're on your phone and you're watching it on your phone all the time and you're watching it on your computer, you begin to develop a relationship with this person.
Yeah, I am no way Charlie Kirk, but I've had that experience, right, because of our broadcasts and this podcast and, people watching on a screen our Sunday morning stuff. And I'll walk through Walmart and somebody will come up to me, never have seen them in my life, and they know who I am.
Right.
And approach me as if, they're Stu Jackson.
Right.
In that space. And so I cannot even imagine what that is times 100 million people.
Right. And so you have that, and you have these people that are just so wrecked by this. And I think back to, conversations that you and I have had, that I've had with other people, that sometimes God's message and God's plan is taught to us in our hardest moments and in moments of pain and hurting. So I look at this and I mourn Charlie, being gone.
Yeah.
He meant a lot to a lot of people. I certainly enjoyed the entertainment he provided trying to talk to people that didn't necessarily want to have a civilized conversation.
Yeah.
But, these people that are hurting and the youth that are hurting, there are lessons to come out of this, and there are things that they talked about a revival at the memorial, and they've talked about it in the days since. It's hard because I want to say, yeah, absolutely. Here comes a revival. Watch this, church. Yeah. I can hope that it's happening.
Yes.
I hope that the revival of faith and religion and the relationship with Christ, this is a turning point that this is happening.
Yeah, and that's something that I think we pray towards, right? That end. And so we could go on with Charlie Kirk, and we could talk a lot more things, and I'm sure we will in future podcasts as this continues to unfold and as we continue to watch how culture grapples with this. But if you're listening online and you are kind of grappling with what is the response, what does it look like to respond well, you can just go to our website, crossroadsabc.com, look up the lament on the weekend after Charlie Kirk's death. That would be September 14th probably was that Sunday. And you could see at least how we led here at Crossroads, the Christian response to the tragedies that we saw on September 11th with the school shooting, with Charlie Kirk's assassination, as well as September 11th and what happened on that day 24 years ago. And so if you'd like to check that out, again, crossroadsabc.com. If you're looking for a church, we'd love to have you. We're right here in Thornton. And open every Sunday.
Every Sunday.
Really?
That's unusual.
You can come and be here. So,
that's a new thing.
Stu, appreciate your time. Glad you could join us.
I got one thing.
Okay.
And it goes back to something Charlie said and a conversation that I watched. And this is really out to everybody that's watching this. And Charlie said, courage is easy. Doesn't require any talents. Doesn't require any, special knowledge or anything. All you have to do is say yes. And in this moment, as you're watching this, and hopefully it finds people that are searching, people that are questioning, have courage. Say yes. And it'll change your life. And all it takes is a commitment to love and believe in Christ to just change everything. So I just, I feel like that's something that I want to challenge people to do, is just have courage. The youth all the way up through 115 years old. Just have courage.
Yeah, that's a good word. Well, thank you for joining us on the podcast today. Stu, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll catch you next month.
All right. See you then.
Thank you for listening to Collision. This podcast is a production of Crossroads Church in Thornton, Colorado. For more excellent content, please visit crossroadsabc.com.